Hello, guys. I wanted to talk with you today about the slap heard around the world, the thing with Will Smith and Chris Rock, and how that I wanted to talk about the not really so much the incident itself, but more like the implications behind how it's going to affect comedy and what that means when comedians are the best source of media when it comes to news and that. Like, we live in an era of comedy delivered news. Much of the most authentic, trusted news is comedy. So this particular case didn't have a political. There was nothing behind it political, but all comedians, or a lot of the good ones at least, challenge power and challenge authority, and this is part of their free expression. And and it wasn't even like it was off. Like, I would have understood if Chris Rock said something to him off. Well, when he wasn't working, because make no mistake, Chris Rock was on the job. He was the hired host of the Oscars. He makes a remark about Will Smith's wife and her appearance, and Will Smith comes up on stage, slaps Chris in the face, walks off, and then Chris Rock he maintained incredible saint-like composure, and Will Smith just starts. It becomes a screaming match. And it was it was just incredibly obnoxious, and it took away so much of what could have. I don't have all that much. I'm indifferent. I will kind of roll my eyes a little bit at the amount of diversity stuff that everybody was trying to shove down our throats. Apparently at the Oscars, I don't really watch. I didn't watch it like most people. It doesn't get a lot of very good ratings in general, and part because I'm not watching it, but I'm just saying that the slap is what got me to pay attention to it, and it's just that when the Oscars, which is a TV event, okay, so there's multiple layers here, I guess, that we can look at. This event it seems to have divided people. It seems like people have wildly different opinions on what, do you stand for Will Smith and the righteousness of masculinity and defending your wife's honor, or do you stand for Chris Rock, who was doing his job and acted like a professional and remained composed? Who do you stand with? I stand with Chris Rock. I honestly, frankly, I'm amazed that there's any debate about this. Will Smith, it was a deranged, unhinged performance. I was unsettled just watching it. I wasn't filled with joy seeing Chris Rock get slapped. I felt bad for him, and I've never thought that there would be a reason that would make me feel bad for Chris Rock, but and I also I think I, as well as anybody else, can see there are some social implications behind the arguably the world's most famous one of the world's most famous black actors slapping the world's most famous black comedian on a public setting like that while celebrating diversity. It just doesn't play well. It reinforces negative stereotypes. It was an obnoxious, aggressive display, and it was completely unnecessary. And the fact, but that aside, the social reaction and anybody's personal opinion, I want to talk more about the actual institutional media side of it, as usual. So the Oscars condones it condones this to an extent, of course, by not punishing him, not ejecting Will Smith from the room. That seems like a natural reaction. It doesn't. I don't think necessarily that Will Smith's I mean, I see the difference. I see a separation necessary between his performance and whatever he was nominated for versus the what his actions. Like his actions shouldn't necessarily remove his acting nomination and an award, but should he have been allowed to stay in the room? Should he have been allowed to? Should he have really been allowed to just go back to his seat? And should he have ever gotten a chance to walk up on stage like that and give a long, bloviating, just again, like it just seemed it was unstable almost kind of speech and going on and on about what he did was just, I mean, he wanted to apologize to the Academy, but he wanted to protect his family as if he was somehow, God, fucking fly, as if he was somehow protecting his family, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, these people, I mean, this was an overwhelming display of decadence and privilege watching him do that, because any normal human being, any working class person would, anybody, if you were anybody except that highest level of elitist class, then you would have been hauled out in handcuffs, and Will Smith should have been hauled out in handcuffs, honestly, and anybody who disagrees with that disagrees with basic tenets of reason when it comes to like justice and law. I mean, if you can't appreciate I mean, it just blows my mind how anybody can condone violence in this way in a professional setting. Again, it would be one thing. I still believe that the better man walks away in most cases. There are some situations that call for violence, but they are very rare, and they certainly aren't called for in this professional setting. When Will Smith is technically on the clock, Chris Rock is literally hosting the thing, is broadcasting to millions of people, but Will Smith is technically working too. I mean, he's definitely on the clock. I mean, he's in the front row, and he knows what this is. I mean, he works for the entertainment industry. Even if he was a guest that night, he's part of the entertainment industry. There's more I could talk about with this, and maybe there's still more to come about it. I mean, honestly, there's a whole layer of what you could ask. I mean, there's a lot to ask even about the implications of celebrity culture, and if it's in decline, and if Americans and the world, if this was a curtain-pulling moment of a look at Hollywood and some of how they really don't stand for much, and how they can condemn violence in some cases, but in other situations they'll completely condone it. I mean, even though they claim that they don't, but we just witnessed him getting an award for doing this, essentially. So I don't know. I didn't expect something like this to come up and fascinate me like it is, but the fact that comedians now are going to have to fear for this kind of thing to happen to them. Comedy is it's a profession, and the guy's on stage. His job is to make observations and play off the cuff a little bit, and sometimes that involves making jokes at people's expenses, and all the good comedians have done it, or possess the tools for that dark magic in their practice. So it was unacceptable from one professional to another, even if they're in different fields, and it seems like an attack on comedy. Again, like it goes further than just these two guys having their own aggression. I mean, like, I see it as Will Smith is this is 100% making life, it's going to make things more difficult for comedians, and and we already live in an age where comedy seems like a dying art form sometimes, because people don't allow, because so much of comedy is wrapped up in insensitivity and facial surface level observations, which often are based on appearance or race or some of the core tenets of what used to be comedy is being drained from it, and they'd like to do the same with political activism, which is part of it too. But there's all kinds. I guess not necessarily saying that this has anything to do with that, but as in what Will Smith did, it wasn't political, but it was a celebrity that many people idolize, using violence and instead of using his words, and making a mass of himself, and not only embarrassing, not embarrassing the Oscars, embarrassing his own, I would assume his own family. I don't know. I mean, maybe they should be embarrassed, and it doesn't really reflect well on the black community either. I mean, he is. I mean, these are stereotypes that he's reinforcing, and they're unnecessary. And I happen to like Will Smith and Chris Rock. I mean, and now I have a reason not to like Will Smith, and it's unfortunate, but that he would help, that he would inadvertently help to facilitate this kind of aggression towards comedians going further. And comedians really are the modern most trusted media. Like, there's a lot of trust in comedy, and in some ways Jon Stewart is like the modern day Walter Cronkite. He can walk, he is accepted in most anybody's living room, so anyway, I just wanted to touch on this, and thank you, and I don't know, I hope that Will Smith realizes that there are he's not going to realize anything, because clearly there are no consequences for his actions, so it remains to be seen if any action is going to be taken. But the only action that would have meant anything was keeping him off that stage and not allowing him to just walk back to his seat, and he should have been escorted out by security. Instead, it was a disgusting display. Anyway, thank you guys.